Good evening. Nice tavern, eh? I believe it goes by the name of the Geeful Ale House. It has some fine ale, though not in comparison to the Golden Mug Tavern. What's that? You want to hear a story? A story. How about the Droog? Indeed, they're an ancient people with an interesting tale to tell. The Droog are a desert people that live in the far South Ukrainian Peninsula, the Glyphs of Fire, specifically the town of Korabe. They're a secretive people, often being hostile to outsiders. They have been deceitful and aggressive to people. We do not know much of their ancient history, but we have a few more recent tales. I think it's proper to start with the Droog discovery and trades. Late in the 6th century, an Imperial trading company seeking alternative routes beyond the Green Range was startled to discover a large and thriving community living in the Cliffs of Fire. These people were the fabled Droog. The exceptional weapons and jewelry possessed by these simple cliff dwellers defied explanation, but the self-sufficient Droog could see no reason why they should exchange any of their valuables for the unappealing trinkets the Imperial traders had to offer. Over the next several years, trading companies tried and failed to interest the Droog, until one company presented a single gaudy bolt of fabric brought from the Imperial capital among their wares. The Droog were instantly spellbound by the intricate pattern and happily exchanged several of their finer weapons to the dumbstruck traders. With visions of gold in their eyes, the small caravan hastily returned to the Imperial capital and secretly prepared wagon loads of the material for trading with the Droog. Unfortunately for them, between the capital and the Droog lay a treacherous 730-league trade route which was frequently plagued by Goblin raids. As luck would have it, the caravan was captured, and the Goblins learned of the Droog interest in the materials from their captives. The Goblins had given up trying to trade with the Droog centuries earlier, and several industrious Goblins immediately realized the value of their new plunder. Over the course of 6 months, the Goblins' band quickly circumvented the Legion patrols with bolts of cloth in tow to arrive at the Cliffs of Fire, only to find they had been upstaged by a freelance trader named Eden Stonebridge. The Droog still saw value in the Goblin cargo, but due to Eden's previous dealings, were unwilling to part with their more valuable items in exchange. The Goblins were forced to retreat with a quantity of baskets, unfinished beads, and some discarded Imperial mining equipment in exchange for their once valuable bounty. The Goblins never forgot Eden Stonebridge, and many years later would return to exact their revenge. What had Eden done that halted nearly all other trade with the Droog? Well, it's stated in the book, The Life of Eden Stonebridge. Around the year 600, Eden briefly glimpsed the Droog using eggshell-like materials as thick as a man's hand with a glorious, oily sheen to it. Judging by the way they were pounding it, it had to be harder than granite. Acquiring even a few lots of the stuff to tile the floors of some wealthy patrician's villa might put a nice jingle in his pouch. Though we don't know what this substance was, he stated that it was as thick as a man's hand and had a oily sheen, which leads to interesting questions as to what it could be. Possibly from some other time in the past, crafted by mages or tradesmen of the past. We don't know. It was a stroke of luck that the Droog held no value in the shells and were actually glad to be rid of them. They were even happier to receive in exchange many of the items that had previously been offered in trade for their treasured weapons and jewelry. As time passed, the Droog became more comfortable dealing with Eden and eventually offered him limited exchanges of Droog weaponry, despite their refusal to all other parties. Eden's wealth grew quickly during these years, and by the time of the Droog retribution, he had established himself as one of Eb's wealthiest citizens. What was the Droog retribution? The various races that had previously tried to trade with the Droog were outraged by the sudden acceptance of trade to Eden. By the year 604, the Droog circle was starting to fear the strange races were not going to go away. The number of strangers approaching the Cliffs of Fire was increasing. All of them seemed obsessed with trading goods of little or no value, but to speak of this infuriated them. Humoring them only kept them coming back. The Droog knew that the various races disliked each other, and the Circle felt this was a weakness to be exploited. With shock from the outside, the Droog formally announced a change of heart and declared a great auction of weapons and jewelry to go only to the highest bidder. Several Imperial trading companies, Goblin tribes, and a sect contingent converged on the Cliffs of Fire to partake in the bidding. The uneasy peace between the competing factions exploded when each group was informed that one of the other groups had stolen the treasures up for bid, and that the auction could not continue. The ensuing skirmish quickly spilled across Ebb and resulted in a 2-year war of attrition between the Goblins, the Sec, and the 10th Legion of the Empire of Stars. The war, called the Green Range Conflict. Though this brought the Droog a few short years of isolation, the well-entrenched Empire took the opportunity to reinforce their positions throughout Ebb, and in the aftermath, they came out of the war stronger and better postured to deal with future insurgencies. To the dismay of the Droog, the Cliffs of Fire were now encircled by Imperial holdings, and when proof of Droog conspiracy reached the 10th Legion several years later, the Droog were forced to concede a major thoroughfare around their home city in exchange for remaining in their homes with a limited degree of autonomy. Let's talk about modern Droog history. By the early 800s, all the Droog abroad in Ebb had been killed or moved to the Cliffs of Fire. All the remaining Droog were forced to live in the town of Korabe, or smaller villages close around Korabe. They had spent several hundred years in relative peace, peacefully allowing different races into the center town Korabe. But around 1444, when the Sec escaped their prison during the Sec resurgence, they forced the Droog into an alliance. What was this Sec alliance? Before the Droog had met the Sec, the Drakes had begun to turn against them. The attacks increased daily. Existence was threatened. The Sec appeared for the first time to the Droog, with warnings and a proposal. They claimed that King Conrad of the Kingdom of Ebb had commanded the ancient dragon Rothe to send forth its spawn and massacre the Droog ancestral home. It could be the only explanation for the attacks. Joining the Sec seemed the only salvation against the Drake. The Droog had a young and unskilled warrior base, unequal to the Sec mages or the Drakes. They were trapped. Unaware the Sec were lying and using them, the Droog made an unwise alliance. They would pay. They helped the Sec lay waste to and destroy the Fortress Croft. Soon after, they learned the lies and deceit. There was nothing to do, it was too late. The Sec shortly trapped them in their own land of Korabe and forced them to work until they were set free and saved by the Lady Montbaron and the Legion. That brings us to the end of the epic tale of the Droog as I know it. Interesting, I would say, and often troubled people, sadly. I would love to visit the town of Korabe sometime again. With the conclusion of this tale, I want to invite you sometime again to sit down with me and listen to the tales of the wonderful world of Arana. Good day, goodbye, and may your mana never run dry.